Their big day yesterday, big announcement in Parliament after many days of preempting it. You have taken on all the recommendations of the Strategic Defence Review, but what has been missing, John Healey, is confirming that you'll be able to pay for it all with a 3% GDP spent on defence. Can you confirm that is the case?
On the contrary, the Prime Minister said yesterday, we are committed to spending what we need to deliver this review. This review can be delivered in full, will be delivered in full. It sets a vision for the next 10 years on how we've got to transform our armed forces, how we've got to make the extra defence investment that we're putting in become the engine for growth right across the country, and how we make our armed forces personnel at the heart of our defence plans with better pay, better kit, and better housing. And I've recently announced 1.5 billion extra to deal with the scandal of military family homes that for too long have been damp, mouldy and substandard, and 8,000 of them aren't even fit to even be occupied.
So you can confirm that the government will definitely spend 3% of GDP on defence spending?
We're 100% committed that we can reach that.
And confirmation are two different things. Is this definitely happening or not?
Look, I'm 100% confident we can deliver this review. We will deliver this review, and that we can deliver the 3%. What's more important, of course, is that what we can do now that counts. And we're putting an extra £5 billion this year into the defence budget. We've said we'll hit 2.5%, 3 years earlier than anyone expected in the year after next. And we've said exactly how we'll fund that. We're going to switch a difficult decision, but we'll divert money out of overseas development aid. We'll put it into defence because that's what is needed to reinforce our armed forces, make the country safer. It allows me to make the decisions now, like I'm announcing today, an extra £1 billion in this Parliament for laser weapons that in 2 years' time will be on our ships, the first European nation to have laser weapons in service. It allows me to save £4 billion, doubling the amount of money going into drone development in this Parliament. And that is a way of boosting British jobs, creating small businesses, creating opportunities right across the UK. Yeah. It's the way that we get the defence dividend from this extra record defence investment that we're making.
Because the argument is that we wasted the peace dividend after the end of the Cold War. You're talking about more money by the end of this Parliament, the ambition that you have, and you haven't confirmed that you'll definitely have it. The ambition is 3% of GDP by the end of the next Parliament. In the meantime, countries like Germany are saying that Russia will attack us in the next 4 years. We're not ready for that, are we?
Well, NATO's doing exactly what's needed, and Britain's playing a leading part of that. We're reinforcing the strength of NATO, the ability to deter any threats in the future, the ability to defend our 32 NATO nations together in the future as well, because in the end, a greater warfighting readiness is about a stronger deterrence, and that we avoid the wars we don't want to fight by being strong enough to win them if we have to.
Yeah, but let me come back on NATO, because their ambition now, we hear from Mark Rutte, the head of NATO, is that countries spend 3.5% of GDP on defence. And we've had Russia fighting in Ukraine, annexing Crimea 11 years ago. So you're not quite spending the money that NATO requires and not acting anywhere near quickly enough.
Well, Mark Rutte, the Secretary-General of NATO, of course, strongly welcomed the SDR, the review, yesterday. There are discussions about what NATO nations spend. There are even more important discussions about what NATO nations contribute to NATO, the capabilities that we contribute and other nations to make our collective defence stronger. And the UK is the only NATO nation that fully commits its own nuclear deterrent to the defence and security of other nations. We will be the first NATO nation in Europe to have a fully operational laser weapon in 2 years' time because of the new investment we're putting in. And because of the investment today that I'm announcing into doubling the amount of drone over the next Parliament, we'll be at the leading edge of innovation in NATO. It's the way that we contribute to NATO in what we provide.
But
not just
sorry to interrupt you, one of the things that concerns military people the most is aerial defences. And former military chief General Sir Richard Barrons says that cruise missiles could strike the likes of Birmingham and London within 90 minutes. What are you doing in terms of perhaps a dome? We see Israel with their Iron Dome. We see the US talking about a Golden Dome of aerial defences, whereas we're talking minutes in terms of a possible attack, and you're talking parliaments and decades in terms of the full investment.
Well, of course, we're part of NATO. Our front line is not on the coast of the English Channel. It's on the border of Estonia and Lithuania, on the edge of Russia. So our defence, in all cases, including air and missile defence, starts with our other NATO nations, and we're playing a leading role in coordinating the efforts to make sure that we can develop that with other nations in the future. And we've made the commitment to respond to the SDR recommendation. We'll put £1 billion in this Parliament to developing our own UK radars, communications and ability to detect any aerial attacks in the future.
Look, while I've got you, I'd be keen to know your thoughts on your colleagues in the Cabinet, the Chancellor and the Foreign Secretary, talking about potentially suing Roman Abramovich to get their hands on the £2.5 billion he made from the sale of Chelsea Football Club. What's going on there?
Well, quite right. This is part of the frozen assets connected with the Russian state and those who are, like Abramovich, very closely related to the Russian state. These are assets which could be put to use to support Ukraine, and in particular the redevelopment of Ukraine if we can get a ceasefire. And so the Chancellor and the Foreign Secretary are right to say, look, we will take every step, including potential legal action, to make sure that we can make these assets available to support Ukraine in the future.
And look, one final question, which is another story I'm sure you will have seen today, the conviction yesterday of a man, Hamit Koskan, who burned a copy of the Quran outside the Turkish consulate. There are concerns that this is bringing blasphemy laws, which were repealed years ago, back via the back door. If someone burnt a Bible outside Westminster Abbey, they wouldn't necessarily be arrested, charged and convicted. So what's your response to that?
Quite simply, this is a judgment and a matter for the courts and independent judiciary in our democratic system in Britain.
Is it blasphemy laws coming back via the back door?
We don't have blasphemy laws. We don't have any plans to reintroduce blasphemy laws.
John Healey, appreciate your time this morning. Thank you very much indeed.